Okay, in our topics today, we are looking at rounding whole numbers, and the learning objective is to round a number. These are the key words we have: approximation, rounding up, and rounding down. Okay, before we embark on this, students should know that numbers are sometimes approximated because it is not always sensible to use exact number. Okay, let's look at this now. Instead, note, if you want to round a number to the nearest multiple of 10, if you want to round a number to the nearest multiple of 10, you round it up if it ends in 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9. If it ends with any of this number from 5 to 9, then that means we are going to round it up. But if it ends with 1, 2, 3 or 4, in this case we are rounding it down. For example, you may be asked to round this number to the nearest 10, something like 25 or 26 or 27 or 28 or 29. If you are asked to round this number to the nearest 10, since it ends with 5, from 5 upwards, you round it up. So this will now be what? With 30 to the nearest 10. Since it ends with 6, this will now be what? 30. You see that? All this will be 30 because it ended with 5 or greater than 5. Number equal to 5 or greater than 5. But if it ends with number less than 5, if it ends with number less than 5, something like, we'll be asked to round this number to the nearest 10. Maybe I have 21, I have 22 or 23, I have 24, something like this. If you're asked to round this number to the nearest 10, it ended with a number that is less than 5. So if this number is less than 5, the number it ended is less than 5. Then we are going to round it down. So that means to the nearest 10 of this will be what? It will be 20. You see, we're rounding it down. To the nearest 10 of this will be what? 20. You see that? This one also is 20. You get that? Okay, now let's look at some example we have. This example says, round each of these numbers to the nearest 10. The first one we have is 24. If I have to round this number to the nearest 10, the end gives us what? It ends with what? 4. I know that 4 is less than 5. So if 4 is less than 5, I want to round this, it end here. That means that we are going to round it down. So this will now be what? 20. In the same way, if you're asked to round this to the nearest 10, as we have 95, to round 95 to the nearest 10, it ends with 5. So it is equal to 5. That means that I will add 1 here. See that? I will add 1 here. This is 0. Add 1 here. 9 plus 1 is 10. So this will now be what? 100. That means I'm rounding it up because it ended with number that is equal to 5. So the number must be equal to or greater than 5. That means you are rounding it up. But if the number is less than 5, you are rounding it down. The same way this one, 78, if you ask to round this to the nearest 10, the number it ends with is greater than 5. So I'm going to round it up. Rounding it up, I'll take 1 here. 7 plus 1 will now be what? 80. So this is how we solve the problem. Now let's look at this. Let's look at this question also. Here we said, round each of the number to the nearest 100. So tell me the answer to this. What will be the answer to this? 240. Work it out. To the nearest 100 gives us what? That's fine. We have 100 is double 0. So that means that we are converting these two numbers to zeros. Since it is double 0, we have 1 2. You see that? Now, the last number ended with a number that is less than 5. That means that we are rounding it what? Down. So this will now be what? 200 to the nearest 100. Okay, now let's look at this. If you ask to round this number 1092 to the nearest 100, what do you have as the answer? Check. That's fine. That's fine. Now look, we have double 0. This will be 0. This will be 0. It ended here. See that? Double 0 from the back, 20. It ended here. Now this number that it ended with is greater than 5. So that means that I'm going to round it up. For me to round it up, I will take 1 and add here. So 10 plus 1. 10 plus 1 is 11. So I'll have that to be 11 with my 20. This is 0, this is 0. So that gives me 1100. You see, I'm rounding up. Okay, let's look at this last one also. Give me the answer to this. Round this to the nearest 100. Gives us what? Fine and good. To the nearest 100, we have double 0. This will be 0. This will be 0. It ended here. So the number it ended with is less than 5. So we are rounding it downwards. So this will be 600. So that gives us 600 to the nearest 100. So that is how we solve the problem. Okay, now let's look at this one also. Here we are told to round each of these number to the nearest 1000. The first one, 2400. 1000 have how many 0? 1, 2, 3. So we count from the back. 1, 2, 3. So these numbers will be 0 to correspond to the number 0. That means it ended with 4. You see that? Ended with 4. And 4 is less than 5. So since 4 is less than 5, I am rounding it what? Down. I'm not adding, I'm rounding it down. So this will be what? 2000. You see that? So this gives us what? 2000. 2000. Okay, now let's look at this also. We have 1092 to the nearest 1000. What do you have as the answer? Check. That's fine. 1000 has how many 0? 1, 2, 3. So 3, this is 0, this is 0, this is 0. To correspond to the 0. 3, 0, this will be 0, this will be 0, 0. So it ended here. Now, since this number is not equal to 5 or is less than 5, I am rounding it down. So this will now be 1000. So that gives us 1000. I rounded this one. Now the last one there is 6745. To round it up to the nearest 1000, we have double 30. This will be 01. This will be 02. This will be 03. Got here? Now this last number that ended with it is greater than 5. It must be equal to 5 or greater than 5. So since it's greater than 5, I'm rounding it up. And since I'm rounding it up, I'll pick 1 here, put it here. So 6 plus 1 will give me 7. So that gives me 7, 0, 1, 2, 3. So that gives us 7000. So that's how we solve the question. How to round to 10, 100, 1000, and so on and so forth. Now let's look at this final question. This one is talking about round each of the following to the nearest whole number. Please, there is a difference between rounding to whole number, rounding to 100, rounding to 10, rounding to 1000. Now, whole number, if I have a number like 25.678, in this number, any number that is before the decimal point is what we call what? The whole number. Any number that is before the decimal point, we call it the whole number. So any number that is after the decimal point, we call that what? A decimal fraction. It is just what we call what? Fraction. See that? Okay. Now with that, if you're asked to round this up to the nearest whole number, we have 24.0565. To the nearest whole number, this number is what we have. Now the number that ended, it ended with this decimal point. And also, the number it ended with is less than 5. So to the nearest whole number here is just what? 24. The nearest whole number. See that? Now let's look at this also. This gives us 109.52. If you ask to round this number to the nearest whole number, the whole number are these ones before the decimal point. You see that? Then after the decimal point, the number that ended with is equal to 5. So once it's equal to 5 or greater than 5, we are rounding up. So since it's equal to 5, I will add 1 to 9. So this becomes 10. See that? This becomes what? 10. So the round up this will now be 110. 110, because 109 plus 1 will be 110. That one we added is because the number it ended with, this number is equal to 5. So once the number is equal to 5 or greater than 5, we round up. This number is 0. It is less than 5. That is why we rounded down. Now tell me the answer to this. 6409.5408. So what will this be if you are rounding up to the nearest whole number? Pause and do that. Okay, that's fine. To the nearest whole number, we choose the number that are before the decimal point. They are the whole number. Now we consider the number that it ended with. This is 5. Since it is 5, we are going to round this up. So if it's 5, I'll add 1 here. So 6,409 plus 1 will be 6,410. This is also because I added 1 here. So this will be what? 6,410. 6,410. So that gives us the answer to the question. So this is how we approximate. So please, you must note that if you want to round a number to the nearest multiple of 10 or nearest multiple of 100 or 1000 and so on and so forth, you round it up. If it ends in 5, 6, 7 or 8 or 9, and you round it down if it ends in 1, 2, 3 or 4 or even 0. If it ends with 0, you round it what? Down. So that's how we solve this question. Thank you for listening.